The little girl was kidnapped on her way home from school on Thursday.
He put all of his body weight over me. He covered my mouth with his hand.
Hold them close into the night.
My entire body went into shock. I had just been kidnapped.
Afraid to step into the light.
I just want to see my daughter again.
Someone was abducting little girls. There was a palpable sense of fear.
Police have no hard leads into the disappearance of 8-year-old Midsi Sanchez.
A stranger had taken our daughter from the street. You don't want to waste time. I was going to do whatever it took to get Midsi back.
This is a sad, troubling case, but as always, there is still hope.
I knew that my family would not give up on me.
I was going to escape. If it weren't for my family, I don't think I would be here today.
You were in this terrible situation. Now we have her back.
It was exciting. It was my 8th birthday, so I wanted to help my mom get the cake and get decorations, to just be involved in every little thing, every little detail.
Midsi actually went to go pick her cake out. And I told her, you know, well, you go out to school and I'll give you cake. She always wants to be the leader. She even tells me what to do, and I'm her mom.
She was really excited for her birthday. When she's excited, it just exudes to the whole rest of the world.
But then we didn't end up having a party.
Normally, our routine was I would meet up with my brother right after school and some friends, and we would walk home together. But it was my birthday, so I wanted to get home. I couldn't wait. The bell rang, and I took off.
I started walking, and it's about 6 to 7 blocks from school to home.
The way I raise my kids, I always tell them that, you know, if somebody comes up to you, you don't talk to them. They ask you to go in the car with them. You don't go with them. You don't talk to strangers.
I was almost home. I was a block away from home, and I saw this man sitting in his car, and it was an old, beat-up Oldsmobile. Started to approach the car. I just had this weird, gut-wrenching feeling that something wasn't right. And as I approached the car, I remember making eye contact with him through the rearview mirror. As I approached, he got out and walked around the back of his car, and he stopped me and said, "Hey, I need your help. I was in a bike accident and I broke my hip." He asked me to reach over for some duct tape that was on the floorboard of his car because he said he couldn't bend over, and so I did. I reached into the car to grab the duct tape for him, and I saw it, and as soon as I put my hand on it, he leaned over me, and he put all of his body weight over me, and he covered my mouth with his hand, and I just remember kicking, screaming, trying to punch, but I couldn't because he was just too big and too strong. He overpowered me, and that was when he threw me into the passenger seat, and he shut the door behind me. I just tried grabbing the door handle and opening, and it just wouldn't open. I had just been kidnapped. I stopped screaming because I realized that nobody could hear me. He started to drive off, and he made a left towards Highway 80, and as we were making that left towards the highway, I could see my home. I was that close to home. And I remember just looking at my home, wanting to be there so bad. It was the most terrible feeling ever. As he was driving in the opposite direction of my home, I felt so helpless. We go about 3 to 4 blocks. We pulled into the parking lot and he handed me some clothing to change into. My thought was, whose clothes are these? It was just so awkward to me. But he wanted to make me look different from the way that I did when I walked out that morning on my way to school. He got out of the car to smoke a cigarette, and I remember watching him. He was watching everything else. He, I'm sure, was trying to watch his back and make sure that nobody was following us. And I remember looking around and wondering, is anybody looking for me?
My brother David and I were at home. We were just watching TV. Our other brother Ismail had gotten home, and he'd gotten home without Midsi. So I think a little while went by, you know, just the time that you would expect her to have gotten home already. And she didn't. So I remember us calling my mother at work and telling her, you know, Midsi's not home yet.
It was a really bad feeling because I knew something was wrong. Something was bad. They knew that they weren't allowed to go anywhere without my permission. They wouldn't just go out the door and go to the neighbors.
The mood shifted to Midsi's missing.
When I get home, I start calling her friends, and they said Midsi was not there.
We called as many people as we could. All my mom had to say was Midsi is missing, and everyone was already showing up. Vallejo already had a missing kid, Ziana, and they hadn't found her yet, and that was scary.
On December 9th, 1999, a little girl named Ziana Fairchild, 7 years old, vanished.
There was someone out there that was abducting 7 to 8-year-old little girls going to and from school. And there was a palpable sense of fear in and around Vallejo at that time.
There's a jail, a correctional facility in Vacaville, 25, 30 minutes from here. A lot of criminals are released in Vallejo because it's less expensive in Vallejo. There's about twice as many registered sex offenders in Vallejo compared to the rest of the state.
Vallejo has its rough areas. A lot of criminals come to Vallejo. But when you're from here, you grow up here, and you're a good person, those aren't the people that you know. So that's not how you know Vallejo. Next thing I knew, we were printing flyers and walking around and passing them out.
I went to find my daughter, and I know how the police works. I knew they were gonna tell us to wait 24 hours, and I wasn't about to. We weren't gonna wait. And the community was helping us, everybody was helping, so I think the police was the last person that we called.
When we heard that another child, in this case an 8-year-old child, was abducted from Vallejo, a serial predator came to mind immediately. The time frame for an abduction is critically important because statistically we have found that if you do not recover the child within 24 to 48 hours, typically they're met with foul play.
I remember the police arriving there. Very quickly, they had already gotten their mobile station set up right around the corner from the house.
When the FBI showed up, I felt like it was really bad. You know, otherwise, why would all these people be here?
I remember walking into that RV and seeing the lieutenant, and he just had that look on his face, and we all kind of had that feeling of, here we go again.
I think that Ziana missing made everybody realize how important this is. You know, whatever mistakes they'd made before and not finding her the first 2 days, they didn't want to make those same mistakes again. They wanted to make sure that they found Midsi.
I went to the search areas and talked to people who were searching, and I talked to family members of Midsi's and of Ziana's. Everyone was very anxious to find both of those girls. It was a big concern for everyone.
The thoughts started going through my head of, where could she be? We live so close to the freeway, somebody could get far quickly with her and we would never know where they were. We were really worried about if she was okay, if something was happening to her. She could even be dead.
To me, it seemed really real when it was dark and Midsi wasn't there. And that's when I knew that, somebody did took Midsi.
Midsi's missing. At that point, it seemed like nobody knew what happened to her. There were no leads on her getting into anybody's car or anybody seeing her with another person. I was thinking about Ziana and how she had gone missing and how they hadn't found her yet. Now Midsi is missing. What if it's the same person? What if we don't get Midsi back like we haven't gotten Ziana back yet?
The first night at the rest stop, he covered up the windows with blankets and rags, and he didn't want anybody to see inside. I noticed that there were restrooms nearby, so I asked him if I could get out and use the bathroom, and he said no. And he pulled out this bowl and asked me to go in the bowl. And he pulled out a chain and lock, and he wrapped it around the gear shift, tied it around my leg, and locked it up. I knew that this guy was not going to let me out of his sight. Later that night, I remember seeing an officer drive by through this little crack. That was the first time that I was able to have some hope. I expected them to stop, and they didn't. As suspicious as his Oldsmobile looked, windows were covered, it's just beat up. The officer just drove in and out of the rest area and kept cruising. I felt hopeful for a moment, and then all that was just gone within seconds. Now I'm really stuck. Now I'm here, and there's nothing that I can do about it or anybody else. I felt so helpless.
You want to find out everything about that child so that you can rule out or rule in, as the case may be, folks that could be responsible. Statistically, it's proven that most of the time, the family is responsible for that child ending up either dead or missing.
So the police brings us in for questioning, and I'm angry, my husband is angry that they're wasting their time. Because we feel that they should be out looking for our daughter, not asking us questions.
It is very tricky because you have to eliminate the parents and at the same time develop rapport with them so that they will give you every bit of information that might help you resolve the case.
They would ask us questions like if we were having any problems with each other, my husband and I, if I thought that maybe he took Midsi, or if a relative took Midsi. They were asking questions like that.
They cooperated with law enforcement, and they eliminated themselves right away by being extremely cooperative and helping.
It was frustrating because I just wanted to go look for my daughter. I just knew that somebody, a stranger, had taken our daughter from the street. You don't want to waste time. This person took my daughter. Guess they want to hurt her. I was going to do whatever it took to get Midsi back.
From the moment that Vallejo residents learned that there was a second little girl missing, there were hundreds of people out looking. People were out during the day beating the bushes and knocking on doors, and they were out at night doing that.
That first night was very stressful. I saw how stressed out my mom was. I was worried for my sister. I was worried about what was happening to her.
You're thinking the worst, they're gonna molest your child. And they're going to because that's why they take them. Because if they weren't gonna hurt your child, they wouldn't take your child.
That night at the rest stop, I was still chained to the gear shift, and Harry is passed out drunk, and up on the dashboard, he had a little clock, and underneath that was his knife set. And even though I was imprisoned in his car, I was listening for sounds and watching cars drive by and trying to plot my escape. And I even thought to myself, well, what if I stab him while he's sleeping? I just was needing to wait for the perfect opportunity. Some time went by and don't know what woke him up, but he pulled out a bottle of alcohol and a little tiny shot glass, and he poured some alcohol into the shot glass and he said, "Here, drink it." And I remember he started to pull out Polaroids of naked women. I remember just closing my eyes and not wanting to open them. And he leaned over and was like hovering over me, and he started to pull my pants down. He pulled out his Polaroid and started snapping photos. I felt so violated and helpless. I felt like, is this really why he wanted to take me and to just take advantage of me in that way? That was just disgusting to me.
You know, any other child being in that situation doesn't have the chance that Midsi does, just because of her personality.
My mom always told me, that her attitude, one day I was gonna help her. I just didn't know when.
Sun rises, it's a new day, that clock is ticking. And we know what the statistics are of how likely you're going to recover a child alive. Every minute you're not doing something, you're wasting time.
All the reporters were on this story because it became clear to anyone who was paying attention that there was some kind of a serial maniac. These two little girls looked too similar for it to have been a coincidence. So we were very alarmed at that point.
We knew that it was really important that we get Midsi's face out there, and not just another flyer that people walk by and they don't look at. It needed to be my mom going on camera, my mom pleading for help. As much as we got her face out there, that was gonna better our chances of finding her.
I just want to say to the person who took my daughter, I don't care what they done to her, just bring her back to me. I just want to see my daughter again. Her brothers and sisters are waiting for her. Bring her back, please. Midsi, if you're watching, I love you. Please come home.
The next morning, we drove off and we started to drive around town, I believe. And he would make me sit on the floorboard and cover me with a blanket so nobody could see me as we were driving around town. And we drove to some home and he got out. I remember hearing him speak to a woman. There were knives on the dashboard and I began to pick the lock, but it wouldn't work. And I got scared, and he came back in the car and he had beef stew. I remember smelling it and being so hungry, and he gave me one bite and then he just like kept eating. And he said to me, if you try to run or if you try to get out, I'm gonna shoot you. For that moment, I gave up. That I wasn't going to escape. I wasn't going to get out. I wasn't going to see my family again. Like, to this day, if I smell or see canned beef stew, it triggers a memory and it triggers emotions for me, and I won't touch it, I won't go near it. After we had gone to the woman's house, we got onto the freeway again and just started driving. When we got into this industrial area, buildings and quiet, he parked the car, cover up the windows, and he would go and leave me for 15 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. And later I found he was watching my family on the news.
I didn't know what was going on at home. I just knew that I missed them. I wanted to be with them, and I felt like I wasn't ever going to get that opportunity again.
We got a call in from the landfill. Someone that was working at the landfill observed some bloody clothing being dumped from the garbage truck. They called our command post, and we dispatched the 2 lead detectives to the scene immediately. What they found was, in fact, some blood-soaked clothing that had indicia of a Vallejo motel. The bloodhound, primed with Midsi scent, actually alerted to the clothing, and we thought a little girl's dead.
You know, I had never felt the feeling of thinking, you know, somebody I love is dead. It's the scariest outcome. It's what you've been afraid of for the past couple of days, and now it's happening to you.
The lead detective scoured that landfill for hours. They found nothing. And these are why these cases are so difficult. You feel literally powerless to do anything, and you want information to come in so you have a place to start.
We're still looking for Midsi, and as long as until we don't have a body here, you know, we're still gonna look for Midsi, no matter what. When the second night came, we started thinking the worst. What is my baby doing? What are they doing to her? And you just think, you know, for these people to please let your child come home. Drop her anywhere, leave her anywhere, just let us get her back.
There were times that I was physically sick. I'm pretty sure everybody's mind was in an ugly place, thinking of what if somebody is hurting her right now and we're not there to help her? You know, and there are 1,000 ways that somebody can hurt a child. It was just very stressful.
The second night, we stayed in the industrial area, and we parked off behind this building and near a dumpster. That was just my view, the dumpster. He unchained my leg, and he made me jump over into the driver's seat, and he was standing outside of the car, and that was the moment that he raped me. All this anger built up inside of me, and my entire body went into shock. I felt helpless. When a grown man is trying to penetrate with an 8-year-old child, it just doesn't work. It's not gonna happen. He got pissed off and he stopped, thank God. And I was just so glad that that was over. I never cried in front of him. And I didn't want to show him that I was weak. Although I was dying and breaking and falling apart inside, I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction.
"34 hours into the investigation, we were starting to wrap up the neighborhood canvas, and after that, we were starting to focus our efforts on the leads we were getting via telephone. And we were getting a significant volume of calls from the public telling us various things, such as, we saw her with a strange man in a car. There are folks that are calling, and then they have their own theory as to who they think is responsible because they've got a strange neighbor that lives next door. But there really wasn't like any really solid sightings.
Well, as time went on, just more and more people showed up. Everybody wanted to give their help.
A lot of people started coming over saying that they were psychics, that they knew where Midsi was, that they wanted to come in the house and touch her stuff so they can figure out where she was. And of course, I let them in. I went to find my daughter.
There are psychics coming over and telling us, I think she's down the street, I'm getting a feeling. You know, you have all of these guesses. That's how helpless we were. They feel like they have a feeling and they're offering their help. you know, yeah, we're gonna pursue it in some way. You can't just brush things aside because they seem pretty ridiculous. We were desperate.
I was just sitting there looking up into the sky, and my view was the beautiful stars in the sky, my escape. I prayed for God to let my family know that I love them, to let my sister know that I'm sorry for always bugging her. And although I didn't ask God to get me out of that situation, he knew that's what my heart was saying. He knew that's what my heart was crying out for.
When you're going through something like this, you do a lot of talking with God. And then you do a lot of promising. So you start regretting things.
It hurts to even think about what my mom was going through. As kids, we can take our parents for granted sometimes and mistreat them sometimes. We don't truly know what a mother's love is, but now I know what my mom was feeling. And I respect her so much for that.
I think that hope and faith were very important to keep the whole community from despairing. There were 2 little girls missing. And it was important that everybody keep believing that they were going to come back.
Well, we didn't grow up religious. We didn't grow up going to church. But if you have other people praying for you, it brings your situation so much closer to God. We had prayers going on, praying the rosary. There was a Virgin Mary that they had set up. There were flowers everywhere. We had our picture of Midsi in the middle, candles lit, and it was just people praying with all of their whole hearts. You know, everybody praying, God, just please bring her home. Make a miracle happen, just let her come home.
The day I wasn't supposed to work at all. I was supposed to be at a barbecue. It was my son's birthday party. I was a truck driver, delivering and picking up for a trucking company. I got a phone call saying you need me at work. When doing Saturday deliveries, it's only like 2 hours. So I figured, you know, that would work. You know, I can go in real quick and then come back home and be able to do a little barbecue with my family. My wife was not happy with me. She wanted me to stay home, and for some reason, I felt the urge, like the gut feeling to go to work and just to be there for some reason.
The next morning, we drove out of the parking lot that we were in, nearby to his place of work. He went in to ask for a black trash bag. And I just assumed that was what he was going to use to put my body in, because at this point, I knew I was gonna die. He leaned over me from the passenger seat and he dropped something which sounded like keys, and he said, "Don't look there. I'll be right back." And so he left. I got curious and I went to go see what it was that he had dropped. I peeked through the windows to see if I could see him or anybody else, and I didn't see anybody. So I reached over to grab it. I had picked up a ring of keys. I sat there looking at the keys, and I saw little tiny keys that seemed like it would fit the padlock, and I picked one. It fit into the lock. And then as I twisted it, it opened. And I'm in shock, like, oh my gosh, like, it unlocked. I wasn't going to escape. I was going to see my family again. As I jumped out of the window and my feet hit the floor, my knees buckled because I was so weak. And I walked around the front of his car and just started walking towards the street. I could see he was talking to a gentleman and he saw me and he was yelling at me from a distance to stop and to come back. He chased me towards the street and no cars were stopping for me. I thought he's gonna come back and grab me again, and nobody's helping me. Finally, this big 18-wheeler drives up and I just jumped in front of his car. I escaped from his car and he saw me, tried following me, and he was yelling at me from a distance to stop and to come back. I thought he's gonna come back and grab me again. Finally, this big 18-wheeler drives up and I just jumped in front of his car.
As I came around the corner, I can hear someone screaming, saying, "Leave me alone, stay away from me."
I jumped into the trucker's car and I said, "My name's Midsi Sanchez. I'm from Vallejo. I was kidnapped."
My wife was always talking to me about that missing girl from Vallejo. So when she came running up and saying her name was Midsi, it kind of hit me that, yeah, you know, that's the one that my wife was talking about.
I jumped through his window on his lap, and because the guy was coming from the other direction.
When she saw him coming, she was really scared. She was like, he's coming, he's coming. So I thought maybe we're both in danger. You know, I wanted to make sure we're both okay. And that's when she said, there he goes, he's going by. So I looked out my window and called in his license plate number.
That was the first time that I'd felt safe again. Although I was with a man I didn't know, I just felt and that he was a safe stranger. That was it, it was over. And I remember just being overwhelmed. It was just overwhelming. Although I didn't know Carl, he helped me, and that's all I needed.
44 hours into the investigation, I received a page, and they told me that Midsi was recovered and recovered alive. I immediately reported to Vallejo because the subject was not in custody at the time. So it had become, we identify who the subject was, find the subject, and arrest the subject.
All of a sudden, I see police at the house, and they're putting up their yellow tape, and a family friend is screaming and yelling that Midsi's dead.
I was hurting, and my whole family was hurting because we're thinking the worst.
I panicked. My mind wasn't there at all. And I thought that my sister was dead. You can't understand it. You can't comprehend it.
And then the police take us down to the station. But they don't tell us why. They just say, well, you have to come down to the station. They sit us in this room, and then they say, we found your daughter. We found Midsi.
You know, I was happy. I was excited. Here I was, a second ago, thinking she's dead. I thought she was dead. And I was, you know, a little pissed off because how could they let me think that she was dead? But then you can't even waste time being upset because they found her.
Once I got inside, I saw my mom. And I just ran up to her and I hugged her, and we were just so emotional. It was just every emotion.
I was crying, I was laughing. It was just like crazy.
Your heart just wants to jump out of your chest because she's okay. They found her. And yeah, I got her back, you know?
Being reconnected with my family was like the ultimate experience. And I finally was able to go home. I rode in the car with my dad, and when we pulled up to our house, there was people everywhere.
All right, Midsi!
It
was a birthday party the Sanchez family and their Vallejo neighbors feared would never happen. But late Saturday night, a relieved and very emotional 8-year-old Midsi Sanchez was reunited with her parents.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe that they had found her. I don't know if I was crying or laughing or both at the same time, and I couldn't even stop.
People were really happy, that Mitzi was back.
Getting Mitzi home was exciting. It was exciting for all of us. You just have this overwhelming feeling of joy. You were in this terrible situation. Now we have her back.
Once Mitzi was recovered, we were starting to focus our efforts on identifying the person responsible. And there was someone out there that was hunting children, and we needed to find that person. When Mitzi escaped, her abductor was at his former place of employment. He had gone in and asked the individual inside for a large bag. We spoke with that individual, and he disclosed that it was Curtis Anderson. We contacted all the local agencies, and in local police reports, there was quite a bit of information because he'd been in prison and been on parole. So we were able to identify people that he hung out with, and he was found staying with a friend. He was a 39-year-old convicted felon who had a criminal history that involved kidnapping and molesting small children.
Neighbors say Anderson, a San Jose resident, has come and gone over the years. They say he has a troubled past and are not surprised he is the same man arrested in the abduction of 8-year-old Midsi Sanchez.
Mr. Anderson went on trial in April of 2001. And from an investigative standpoint, Midsi Sanchez was probably one of the best witnesses I've ever experienced, regardless of age. Her ability to testify and remember specific facts and circumstances about things and items that she experienced. For example, the clothing that Mr. Anderson forced her to put on, the Millennium 2000 shot glass that he put liquor in and forced her to drink. When we recovered the car and searched it, we found all of these items that she said she experienced, which corroborated her completely. And it made her a very, very compelling witness at trial.
It made me feel really proud of Mitzi, that she went up there and pointed him out and said, he's the person that did this to me.
He was convicted and sentenced to 251 years in state prison. In January of 2001, a skull was discovered in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And DNA tests positively confirmed that in fact, skull belonged to Ziana. Mr. Anderson disclosed that he was responsible for 8 females' abductions and deaths and 2 others in Mexico. That included Ziana. He had a myriad of health problems and died in prison in December of 2007.
Carl Tafu is my hero. He's this smart, amazing, hardworking man that happened to be at the right place at the right time. I know you don't feel like a hero, but you're my hero.
Oh, hey.
So good to see you.
It's nice to see you.
Good for you.
Oh, you didn't have to bring me this.
I had to. I really do feel like God put you in that place at that right time because you had my back, and we were quick thinking, and everything that you did was just on point, and I'm so grateful for you. You truly are my hero. I appreciate you.
I don't feel like I'm a hero.
Thank you so much.
It's a wonderful feeling to be able to help somebody in their need.
You were perfect person, perfect timing. People passed me by, and you were the only one.
It's the right thing to do is to stop, you know? Why wouldn't you stop?
Right. If it weren't for him driving down that street at that exact moment, I don't think I would be here today.
God's divine timing made you a huge part of my life. You are my hero, Carl.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Midsi, she's more than just a hero for saving herself. She saved other little girls as well.
It takes a lot of courage for a little girl to find the right key to unlock herself and to run for help, you know. That's your true hero there.
My family got me back because God had a greater plan for my life. I am here to share my story with other families and be an advocate for those who have gone through similar situations as me. And had I not gone through the tragedy as an 8-year-old, I wouldn't be able to help others like I do today and be able to give other families hope that many didn't have when I was missing.